All right, so first things first, who are you? What's your role and where do you work?
So my name's Alex Arnell, and I work at Heroku. I've been here for 11 years. I work on the telemetry team, which is responsible for all of the telemetry slash observability. We kind of have two teams. There's an observability that's more focused on what the data looks like, and then the telemetry team, which is really just focused on uh, getting the data out and helping to shape. The two teams kind of work very closely together, but we kind of have slightly different focuses, and it kind of works well that way.
All right, Alex, so what are three emerging Kubernetes tools that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, so definitely the first one on my list there is the OpenTelemetry Operator. We use that quite a lot in-house. And not only does it just make life easier to manage the OpenTelemetry collectors within our Kubernetes clusters, it also, it has some neat properties with auto-instrumentation. That's a whole other topic to dive into. But I'm also really interested in the target allocator aspect that it provides, being able to, on the fly manage different collectors and kind of give different configurations really makes it more efficient within your cluster. So that's definitely something that we keep an eye on. I guess the other two tools that I like to follow. One's more of a personal interest. I kind of like when I'm not delving into observability and telemetry things and open telemetry. I really like the whole concept of like identity, and so for me, I just really closely follow like um, SPIFFE and Spire. So the Spire implementation on Kubernetes is kind of like what I like to follow. There's a lot of really neat examples in that source code on like how to kind of do things well within Kubernetes, and actually just even well with like identity and being able to provide certificates for use back and forth to help confirm identity of your workloads within the cluster. So that's more of a personal interest. That sort of thing interests me. The third project I like to keep an eye on is KEDA. So yeah, I think that might have like a short name. Yeah, the Kubernetes event-driven autoscaler. Uh, so that one, obviously at Heroku, we have a platform, and autoscaling is kind of like something that we uh, focus a lot on, and being able to scale things down. We aren't using KEDA right now, but it is definitely a technology that I like to kind of follow along and keep an eye on and see how they're achieving their goals. And does a lot of really interesting things, and like hooks into the interesting stuff with telemetry, of course. So being able to scale to zero is something that any platform as a service provider is really interested in, really.
One of our podcast guests, Miguel, discussed how visualizations can help consume and make sense of vast amounts of data, aiding in better decision making and system management. Alex, what is your thought process for collecting, alerting, and visualizing data in a Kubernetes cluster?
Yeah, definitely. Visualizations are incredibly helpful to operators, right? Being able to see the data in a way that makes sense. But I guess one of the kind of like key parts that I like to tug on with telemetry and the shape of that data is making sure that it has the right level of attributes and having consistency. I think this is especially important for larger organizations where you have several teams, and every team is deploying different components. You kind of want to have a standard way of doing things. This is where open telemetry's semantic conventions can really help a lot, because obviously they're conventions. And so you have very consistent naming of your services and namespaces and instance IDs. But I think it's also very valuable to come up with a language or a set of terms to help describe like the business aspects, and that's going to be unique to every business. And that those common attributes really help, right, in inspect things when you're dealing with, an incident at 3 a.m. Having probably a lot of our audience, dealt with this a few days ago with Amazon. But yes, when you're kind of like in the midst of a big incident, you have folks from different teams coming in and having all the data in one place and having that ability to dive into it and explore things and connect dots and having the common set of attributes across everything really helps you kind of figure that out. And you can sort of visualize things and get, a high level, and then, knowing that, okay, I can dive into a specific subsection here, like maybe a namespace or a pod, and figure out deeper, like what's going on in this particular instance, and separate the data out. So you kind of start high level and then dive deeper and explore kind of more lower level and get like, what's happening. Um, yeah.
And the same guest, Miguel, also explained in the episode that while monitoring deals with problems that we can anticipate, such as a disk running out of space, observability goes beyond that and addresses questions you didn't even know you needed to ask. Does this statement match your experience in adopting observability in your stack?
I would say that it does, with some nuances there, right? I think one of the things that OpenTelemetry focuses a lot on is like this T shape of metrics, where you you kind of want to have like 80% of your basic stuff there, which covers your red metrics, or whatever acronym of observability that your team, your organization likes to follow, but it covers your basics of like your golden signals of what to observe, and that's going to account for like 80% of what gets there. And then you have this 20%, which is your business, your core kind of like business oriented, which is custom. And for me, like, yes, like it matches that, how we've done things, and I feel like how Heroku's tried to shape its open telemetry within Fur, whereas like the platform is providing you with that 80%, right? The golden signals. And then beyond that, where observability really kind of like really starts to work is being able to customize and emit the custom, like the business specific logic. So in the midst of an incident, you've got your basics are covered. You've got the kind of standard golden signals. That's kind of like where I think of monitoring, right? You've got certain things that you're going to set your alarms on, but they're generally type kind of high level. And then it's like once you get paged, okay, we got a lot of errors. Well, what are those errors? And where are they coming from? And that's where, the power of tracing comes in, being able to dive into those attributes and kind of like the big, understanding, like, you've got custom hooks in place that are going to trace back specific paths within your infrastructure. And if you're really clever with it, it's distributed tracing across multiple things. And so you can pinpoint precisely where things are falling apart in your infrastructure by following that trace. And then, of course, if you are, taking full advantage of the context capabilities, I mean, certain languages are a bit easier with this, like Java, but it's certainly possible with the Golang and other SDKs that are available with OpenTelemetry. But you can, you get links to logs and also to metrics. So you can do interesting, tie it back in, and you can see, okay, yeah, this trace here, and then you can pinpoint down to a specific log. Maybe the trace doesn't have, the full exception, but because it's linked to a specific log, you can get there. So it really, really helps with that, and definitely has matched kind of like as we've rolled out our ability to kind of dive deep and uncover what's happening. But there's definitely a lot of gotchas to look out for. So
And Kubernetes turned 10 years old last year. What should we expect in the next 10 years to come?
I think the shape of Kubernetes is going to have to adapt and change a bit. I think AI is the current hot topic in our industry. Everyone's trying to do their things with AI. And so with that, you kind of have this new era of software developer who's not really not formally educated, or it's like may not even have a lot of actual knowledge around what they're building. And with that, you can end up, I think it's really empowered a lot of folks, and it's great. I think it's wonderful. We're going to see a huge influx of neat things being built and ideas coming to fruition. But at the same time, you've got those bad actors you always have on, the people. It's kind of like I'm kind of an ancient developer, and so I think the term that comes to mind was like script kiddies when I was in my early days, and like you just like hacking together things to do nefarious things on the internet. And so I think AI is going to really help with that capability. And so security for me, I think that's where one big area of Kubernetes is going to need to really work on is the security aspect, being able to secure workloads, and making the security process kind of like more baked in, or kind of like have more tools available. I mean, you can already do a lot of things, but I think like that's going to be an area that folks are really going to pay attention to in down the road. Um, Obviously, big corporations I feel are going to use Kubernetes a lot more. But with that, you know, there's going to be a lot more analysis into the cost of running things on Kubernetes. A pod, it runs, and right now there are some advances in auto scaling, but you know these things, they cost money to run, and so scaling them down, doing proper analysis, I think there's going to be a lot of advancements, I think, in the next few years on how to optimize the cost within a cluster, or even maybe across clusters. So I think like those are two big things where I see Kubernetes going in the next few years. But yeah, I think it's pretty exciting.
And what's next for you?
We're looking at, I'm really kind of like one of the next big things for me at Heroku is nailing down kind of like the overall shape of the telemetry that we're emitting on Fur. I'm also noodling on some ideas. I did have a talk at KubeCon in Salt Lake about a year or two ago, and I have the itch again. It was the first time I'd ever done a talk, and it was well received. But now I'm feeling the itch again to get out there on stage and talk about something else. So I'm noodling on a few ideas. So hopefully, folks will see me. They won't see me at the upcoming KubeCon in North America, but hopefully folks will find me at a future KubeCon next year on stage. So yeah, I'm trying to figure some things out on that front. Yeah,
And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
reach out to me at LinkedIn. That's probably the only place where I really pay attention. I'm not much of a social media person myself, but LinkedIn is the place to be for me. And then, of course, you can reach out to anyone at Heroku. I personally won't be at the next KubeCon, but you can. There's going to be plenty of my coworkers there, and we'll have a booth. And yeah, I think everyone is really excited to be. I think it's in Atlanta, isn't it?
Correct.
Uh, yeah, yeah, everyone's excited to be there. So yeah, come visit our booth. Say hi to the folks there. They'll all be happy to chat and answer questions about what we're doing. So yeah,
Well, Alex, thanks so much for your time today. Look forward to speaking to you in the future. Take care.
great chatting with you as well, Bart. Thank you.